Pirates of Hormuz, Charles, with the very octopus-looking Davy Jones-like Moolah. How are you today? Looking very dapper, Charles.
Thank you. Thank you. Credit to my new tailor, Ken at Sparks, here
Ah,
in Batu Ferengi. Guy has got, it's a small shop, which I like, but he's got a highly talented group of tailors and the best, um, the best materials available. This is an Italian, some kind of Italian, fancy Italian wool. Um, I have another blue one that I got, all blue as opposed to the window panes here. And I'm working on the physique. The personal trainer is making great progress, and I'm the weight. My weight is not the focus; it's the musculature required for good tennis that we're working on,
everybody
and strength
comments,
training.
Charles. Yeah, people can see the physical fitness is you're definitely getting much more fit. Sparks Taylor is going to be delighted to make all kinds of new suits for you, so that's good. But
Yeah.
Charles, people, I mean, I don't know. It seems like some of the fervor over the whole Iran deal has died down a little bit. Like everybody was saying, oh, Trump has destroyed everything. But then gas seems to have come down. But I don't know. Bob Bishop is saying that I don't know. Bob Bishop is not so confident. He's a little bit black pilled, I think he would say.
Well, in my view, this is a regime that has shown its true colors, and I think the people in the region, forget Israel for a second, the Gulf states, the Sunni Gulf states, look at this and say this is a mess. And on balance, the region was better off under a secular government. And that's the direction we're going in now. I mean, these people are like other gangsters and highwaymen and pirates that they're talking big about what they might do to you eventually. But in the short run, the U.S. Navy is by far and away the strongest naval power on Earth. There's nothing close. And literal gun sites are trained, and targeting is already, I would guess, set on the many people who think that they can rise up from the rubble that exists now and hold the people of Iran and the world hostage, exacting tolls for traffic through international waters. And this is not going to happen under Donald Trump. It just simply is not going to happen. So right now we're hours away, minutes away from Tokyo opening up. We'll get a sense during this broadcast of how much the markets are going to go down in the beginning of trading sessions today. The question is, once a breakthrough is announced, which I think it will be announced, how far up will the markets then roar? So I don't trade on in and out of markets on a daily or hour by hour basis, but I'd be watching very carefully to see how low they go and see what markets I might want to snap up personally, if I had
Where
the time to do it. Today I don't have the time to do it, but
you don't even have
um,
time to snap up markets. That's how.
no, I'm busy. I'm quite busy. Um,
I'm just teasing, Charles. This is,
yeah.
I listen, who has time? But so wait a minute. So the Nikkei, is this how we look at it here on,
Yeah.
so what is it gonna, ooh, it seems down a lot. No, 1,000?
What what's the percent?
One, yeah, I guess not that much. One negative 1.75. I don't know. Is that
That's
bad?
nothing.
Yeah.
No.
Thousand
If
seems
you got
big, but
close
maybe not.
if you got close to 10%, that would be an issue. But
Uh-huh.
1, 3 is nothing on
Okay.
on a given day.
Right. Just
Um,
goes up and down.
and so then you look at when you look through all the chatter, predictably, people on the left are running with the narrative Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Noteworthy in that is this idiot tampon Tim Walz going to a globalist progressive conference in Barcelona and saying that Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Really? This is how well did you do with the Somali fraud problem? And weren't you in that movie, Me, Myself, and Irene, as the albino guy? I mean,
Does anybody even know who he is when he shows up there? They're like, waiter, we need more coffee.
but yeah, the guy was the vice presidential candidate in
Yeah, but
2024. I mean, so the left is trying to run with the narrative that Trump and his team of accomplished billionaires and in some cases career politicians, Rubio and others, doesn't know what they're doing, whereas Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden and Kamala Harris knew what they were doing for 4 years from January 2021 to 2025. I mean, it's just the legacy media it's really, I mean, at least the National Enquirer is funny, you know, and actually the National Enquirer has broken some major stories well ahead of the legacy press. That, you know, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Time, Newsweek, The Economist, CBS, ABC, NBC, you know, CNN, why do you watch or care about anything these people have to say? What Donald Trump is doing here is, in short order, he is taking control of pivotal choke points in global trade, right? From the Panama Canal, there's a port in Peru, apparently we're going to get control over. Diego Garcia, the Straits of Malacca, which happen to be, Straits of Malacca are to my, let's see, I'm actually technically facing a different waterway that connects Penang with Malaysia, but I'm very close to the Straits of Malacca. And if we're concerned about 20% of the world's traffic through Hormuz, 40% of the world's traffic goes through here, and coincidentally, through a passage near where I want to get property in the Gili Islands off Lombok. So he's, you know, and he's got Venezuela, we've got our own reserves. Where are America's biggest problems right now? Canada, Mexico, and the UK, Germany, France, and Spain. You know, when I was a little kid at Times Square, the wheels on the bus go round and round, and would go round and round if they hadn't already fallen off. You Nimrod bitches. I mean, that's whoever orchestrated Barack Obama and, you know, moron Mondami talking to kindergartners about the wheels on the bus going round and round is a certified idiot.
Well, they're looking for dates, I think. These guys are going to the kindergarten.
Or food.
Yeah.
You know, meanwhile, there's some Nigerian guy in Italy. He's cooking a cat on a grate.
Where's that?
In Italy. He was just arrested, ranting that thing. Anyway, so when I was a little kid, younger than kindergarten, I went to St. Luke's School. We've walked by that school several times in the past and taken video of it. I remember my first day of school there. And we were all told then that the Soviet Union was, you know, the greatest danger to us. We had to do drills, not every day, but we had to go down into the basement, pretending there was, you know, air raid sirens would go off. And the West was pitched, America and the West, Western Europe, were pitched as the last bastions of liberty and beacons of freedom. And today what you have is a rotting corpse of deceit and despair across Western Europe. The leaders are selling their people bullshit while they meanwhile enrich themselves. You know, Ursula von der Leyen, you know, when the fuel prices go up, the cheapest fuel is the fuel you don't use. I mean, what kind of a moron would say that? People, you know, with real responsibilities. She has 7 children, I believe. You know, people who are trying to get their children to and from school need to be able to have reliable forms of transportation, and it hurts grievously when prices go up this much. And why are prices this high? Because Ursula von der Leyen and these globalists embarked on a ruinous course, abandoning cheap fuel, which had already been paid for, the nuclear energy program in Germany, for example, and hooking themselves up either to Russian supplies, which are not available because they're poking the Russian bear, or it's unreliable wind. You know, and who is going to rely on solar energy in Western Europe? Fucking place is dark and gray for like 8 to 9 months per year.
They could run the whole place on hot air, Charles. Just capture everything coming out of Brussels.
Yeah, everything. And one of the reasons gasoline and other fuel prices are high is because these deficit-racked and debt-plagued governments soak you at the pump. A big percentage of your cost of fuel, taxes paid to the many governments. And in particular in Europe, the taxes are ruinously high there. So these are people who are either working for the enemies of civilization, taking money from, let's say, the Chinese Communist Party, among others, or they're just, at the bottom of the IQ point pile. They're down there at like, they can't add 1+1. They can't get the answer right if they're fed the answers themselves. And what's really remarkable through this whole Iranian process is that under Obama, John Kerry and the Hillary Clinton and others would at this time, because summer's coming, spring is nice in theory in Western Europe, they'd be on junket after junket consulting with our European allies, probably doing coke lines and chasing little boys and girls afterwards. Relentlessly to put together a common front to confront the mullahs. And, Trump and his team is saying, listen to me. You Europeans have fucked things up to a farthy well. You want to have your internal meetings without us? Go do it. But by the way, we're taking our troops out of Europe. And by the way, we and Russia are going to decide how to end the Ukraine conflict. And by the way, stay the fuck out of our hemisphere. And by the way, to the extent you're going to impose censorship regimes on your own people, you are making the case for us to not only treat you no longer as an ally, but to potentially treat you as an enemy. I mean, in this information age where you don't need a university campus or a classroom to educate people, to go down a censorship regime where nutcases, economically illiterate communists, socialists, and nutcases are deciding what is harmful, what is disinformation, what people shouldn't think about. That is preposterous in this age, right? I mean, it's never going to be effective. Technology will be much faster than bureaucracy in this regard. And you're just, people who can't stand criticism are not part of the learning process. That's how you learn. People make mistakes. If I made a mistake, tell me about it. I'll think about it. Maybe you're going to say I made a mistake when I didn't. Maybe I did make a mistake. If I did, I want to learn from it. But to go and have, somebody as stupid as Nina Jankowicz involved in disinformation campaigns, picking winners and losers on social media and in life, it's just the axis of stupidity.
I wonder what Nina is up to lately.
Well, probably working on some project in Spain, with a corrupt prime minister and his corrupt wife, who thinks, he's going to make a career out of bashing Trump. It's going to be a very short career, at least in politics.
The New York Times has an article that says Trump officials try to fight foreign disinformation they once dismissed. And searching for Nina Jankowicz brings this up. The war in Iran has exposed the need to mount a defense against foreign influence campaigns. Experts say, so this is going to be some stupid Nina angle on whatever they're actually trying to do. Charles, speaking of disinformation, you got nothing but lawfare podcasts with Ben Wittes and all the scoundrels like Charmella. Here, it says the State Department is now admitting it might be a problem if foreign adversaries lie about us, said Nina Jankowicz. That is a stupid statement, if you ask me.
Think about the whole 2016 presidential campaign. Yeah. Or actually go back a cycle. What these people are expert at is directing you to focus over here when the real problem is over here, right? Yes, the 2016 election was heavily influenced by foreign interests, as was the 20, as was the 24. I mean, you had Zelensky, in effect, campaigning for Kamala Harris inside the United States of America in 2024. I mean, think about that. But in 2012, the real crime was we still don't know the truth about what was going on in Benghazi. We still don't know the truth about the compromise that was reached between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. What dirt did Hillary Clinton and her team have on Barack Obama that caused a man who won a historic election to make so many concessions to the Clinton camp. I mean, Eric Holder was the person responsible, or who, in theory, approved the pardons of, not just Mark Rich and Pincus Green, but all the Puerto Rican terrorists and Susan Rosenberg and many very bad actors. Why would Barack Obama agree to let Eric Holder have so much power? And then after him, Loretta Lynch. Why did Hillary Clinton get the right to control USAID? Why did her husband, why did they sell to the public that memorandum of misunderstanding and disinformation, actually bold lies about the status of the Clinton Foundation in December of 2008? Why did Barack Obama do that? John Kerry oversaw the process through the Senate. Why did they sell that pack of lies to the American public? What leverage did the Clintons and do the Clintons have over Barack Obama? These are the big questions. And Joe DeGenova is now apparently, your time tomorrow morning, going to be sworn into a position where he's advising the Attorney General on the whole grand conspiracy case. Now, Joe DeGenova is somebody who knows about the Clinton Foundation chapter and verse. How do I know that? Because I'm the one who briefed him. So he knows all about this. Jeanine Pirro knows all about this. And the number one question I would be asking right now is, why is our government under Donald Trump fighting Larry Doyle and John Moynihan in tax court? Why have they been doing this since 2018?
I have a question, Charles. Look at this New York Times headline. It says, U.S. installs a Trump loyalist to lead grand conspiracy case into Trump foes. Doesn't that read like a headline written by some like Russian or Chinese newspaper? Why do they say U.S. installs?
Again, yeah, and again, when Barack Obama and Joe Biden did what they did with their appointees, why weren't the New York Times headlines saying far left lunatic, so and so nominated by progressive hack president, to be whatever position? I mean, the New York Times, again, I go back. It's talking points from the Democratic Party, or talking points from George Soros. All of these people, most of these people in legacy media are overpaid, stupid hacks. I mean, Christiane Amanpour is now going around saying that she has this dog tag, something that looks like a dog tag. And she just told somebody that apparently that she had held the rank of major during the Gulf War or something like that. And military people are pointing out that your rank is never identified on a dog tag, that it wasn't a dog tag. And obviously she was working for CNN, so she was not a major in anything. And this major, is somebody who's an esteemed journalist, veteran journalist out of CNN. I mean, just if you want to take one piece of advice from this old codger, turn off your fucking television set. Don't watch legacy news. It is a complete waste of time. These people are TDS sufferers, panicans. They're illiterate and devious, and most of them depend on side gigs and payments, artificially high payments for books, for speaking deals, for salaries for their spouse at nonprofits that are basically crooked. It's just you will be a lot clearer thinker if you try to go to the sources of the news themselves, the reports. Read those things for yourselves. Make up your own mind. You don't give a shit what Christiane Amanpour or Fareed Zakaria or that literal lunatic James Carville. And so I actually think what's surprising here is that you don't see, if we were in real danger in the Persian Gulf right now, the Russians would have drawn a red line. They would have said, we back this government 100%. An attack on this. We recognize the government of whatever it is now as being the legitimate government in Iran. Any attack on Iranian forces is an attack on us. We have invisible nuclear armed submarines in striking range of all of your forces there. Back the fuck down. And
What
that
have they
message,
said though? Nothing
they
really.
have said nothing.
Yeah.
And so my point is, I think there's a much larger game afoot here. I think the Russians have been saying, and it's a fair point. World War II, which we helped win, Soviet Union helped win, ended 81 years ago. Okay, you've watched us since 1992. Western Europe has nothing to fear from the Russian Federation. Why do you need all of these American troops in multiple bases in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Germany, in England? Why do you need all these? They're expensive. What the hell are you doing here? The fact that you have them makes us think that you are supporting the efforts led by England to try to break up the Russian Federation. You have an easy choice, which we don't understand why. This is the Russian perspective. Why are you spending all this money? You have $39 trillion in debt. These regimes that you're supporting are failing. They're committing economic suicide. Yet you're subsidizing this and you're threatening us. It would be a very simple move in your own interest to take your presence in Western Europe from whatever it is now, say that's X, to 0.2X and save 0.8X per year.
It's also interesting,
Very
Charles.
simple.
I haven't spoken to him in a while, but remember when the Ukraine war first started, my buddy there, John Mark Dugan, he was going over to Ukraine and reporting on the war. I mean, I guess people will say, oh, he's a Russian puppet, but I don't know, an oppressive, like in England, they don't like what you put on Twitter and they arrest you. He was going back and forth doing all kinds of stuff. They let
Right.
him.
Yeah. And so on the one hand, we have that card to play. And then you look at, every major recent international issue that we've gotten involved in and we've taken point on, we've had to drag the Europeans with us, right? They're not helping. And Barack Obama reportedly is Obama is leading a back channel, to our erstwhile NATO allies and possibly to Iran, meddling all over the world. He's about to open up this ridiculous vanity exercise in Chicago of all days, Juneteenth, where he spent over $1 billion on a camp pie that really looks as if some gigantic alien has dropped a huge load of shit in a park and cut a door in so he can overcharge. He's going to charge people
What?
like $30 or $40 to go into this mess.
Well, I guess they do charge you to go to the Clinton one also, I think. Yeah.
These should be free.
Yeah,
Absolutely
why
free.
are they charging if it's tax exempt?
Yeah, they should be absolutely free. If this is you shouldn't have you shouldn't be allowed to pack the boards of these things with partisan supporters of the former president. You just shouldn't be allowed to do this. These are public charities, they're libraries. They're not indoctrination centers, right? And if it were the case that the general public really loved Barack Obama and thought that his work was so great, you wouldn't need, how many years is it now? Almost 10 years to go over in secret the presidential records of his 2 and 8 long years, 2 terms and 8 long years as resident of the White House. You wouldn't need this time. People will be saying, "Oh, I remember this great feature of the president. I remember this." And instead, it's one gigantic cover-up.
Wait a minute, Charles. How much did you say it costs to go to the Obama presidential chef murdering museum?
I think I read somewhere it's either $30 or $40. It's going to be the most expensive ticket by far.
Wow, yeah, because the Clinton one is only $12.
Right.
But still, you're right. It should be free. Well, so here's the thing, though, Charles. Speaking of free, these podcasts don't pay for themselves. We need people, I need people, I should say, to sponsor the show. Crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com. We're going to break right here and come back in the First Amendment Forum. We are, as I've been mentioning over the past couple of weeks, it's still a pretty recent development, but the show is back on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel. So welcome back to all the 115,000 subscribers who haven't been able to see the show for the past 5 years. It was a hell of a legal fight with Screw YouTube, Screw MeTube, but the channel is back, so please watch on there. There's only 58 people watching on there, Charles. You know, we used to get thousands and thousands of views. Good news is this replay of a Charlie Kirk video earlier today is up to 1,000, so hopefully it'll start gaining some traction. I have a feeling YouTube is putting a thumb under the scale, as it were. But